Welcome to Bet On It, college football week 11. The time has just flown by. My name is Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter. Before we bring in the guys for a big game breakdown, I just want to let you guys know next Wednesday, November 15th, wagertalk.com will be Customer Appreciation Day. Each capper on the site will have a play up for just $5. We're going to let our lovely Bet On It fans know before everybody else. Let's bring in Marco D'Angelo and Joe Raineri to break down those big games. Saturday, Fox, 12 Eastern. Michigan, 5-point favorite at Penn State, total 44.5. Marco, fresh off another excellent week in college football. Who do you have?
Well, Kelly, I'm going to get to play you this week. I am going to be at this one. Looking forward to it. First trip ever to Beaver Stadium in Happy Valley, and we'll see if the home side is happy at the end of this one. Michigan comes into town, lot of fanfare, undefeated, a lot of turmoil with stealing signs and everything else. We'll see what happens. But, Kelly, I'm looking at this one, and how good is Michigan? I mean, they've looked absolutely amazing so far this season, undefeated and just beating everybody to a pulp, not giving up any points. But I looked down that schedule, and who did they play that has an offense this year? They haven't played anybody. They've had 3 road games that I'm looking at here in conference play. They played at Michigan State. They played at Nebraska. This is a spot where how do you look at those teams and see any offense that strikes fear in you? Michigan will face the toughest defense that they have faced. In fact, this is the number 1 defense in the country at yards per play, and you're giving them points at home. I love taking the better defense, put that team at home, put it on the national stage. This is the primetime game for noon, and you're going to have a full house there at Beaver Stadium, as you always do. I got to take the primetime home dog. I'll be there. I'm not picking Penn State just because I'm going to be there, because you know me, I like money better than I like a team. We're going to go with the home dog. I think this one comes down to a field goal. Either way, let's call it Penn State 23-20 on Saturday.
Marco, I'd have to agree with you. Early on this beautiful Wednesday, I do lean towards Penn State. They are on my long list to have some outright winners this week. 2 out of 3 last week in my parlay. Got me again. Joe, talk me off Penn State here. I'd really like James Franklin as a dog. Covered 12 of the last 14. He's been on fire this year. I kind of agree with Marco. I haven't seen much from Michigan because they haven't had to, right? Like, this defense has just not given up points. Last weekend, the only reason why Purdue made it through the back door is because of a very late touchdown. I'm kind of nervous, though, stepping in front of Michigan.
Well, it's kind of hard, but I mean, again, not exactly murderer's row here of offenses have they actually been playing here. And I'm wondering how much tape that Michigan has on Penn State, and if it's really going to matter, considering I'm pretty sure everybody understands that in order for Penn State to win this game, they've got to play from in front. And the reason they have to play from in front is because their quarterback, can't throw the ball down the field. I mean, 70% of his passes are under 10 yards. They are not built to come from behind. So knowing that, really, the best way to go about trying to win this game if you are Penn State is you got to control the clock. You've got to keep that Michigan defense out on the field. You've got to move the chains because explosive plays aren't going to happen. And while, yes, they did light up Maryland, do we really need to compare Maryland's defense to what we just saw here with Michigan? It's not even close. Michigan does the same thing. They're very methodical offensively. They are going to keep you out on the field, Penn State defense. They're going to move those chains. They're going to score. They're going to be very efficient, but they, too, aren't exactly going to light up the scoreboard. So the number is 44.5, 45, even 44. Somewhere in between there is what I've been seeing. I don't see the pace of play being up-tempo. I don't see either offense having a whole ton of success here, and I do think the under is the only way to look in this game at Penn State. This is going to be the biggest test for Michigan. And what's the old saying in the Big Ten, right? Michigan is built to beat Ohio State. Ohio State is built to beat Penn State. Penn State is built to beat Michigan. So while I would certainly look towards Penn State being the winner here, I think first 1 to 21 wins this game if we're lucky.
Interesting. All right, Joe likes the under. Marco and I like the underdog. Saturday, ESPN, 7 p.m. Eastern. Ole Miss at Georgia. Georgia's an 11-point home favorite. Total 59. What do we do with this one, Joe? I like this Ole Miss team. I really like Lane Kiffin. But Georgia's another one of those teams that has struggled somewhat and then end up just running away with it in the fourth quarter. Is this maybe a Ole Miss first half play?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was what? It's definitely going to be a first half play for me for Ole Miss because we've seen this. We saw Mizzou just do it to Georgia as well, right? We've seen the slow out of the gates Georgia offense trying to figure some things out. Now, ultimately, they ended up figuring it out as the game it was 24-21 heading into the fourth quarter on that game last week for Georgia against Mizzou. And then, of course, the defense kind of stepped up, and that was the end of that. But the problem with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin is he does great when he's not going up against the likes of teams like Georgia or Alabama. They certainly have enough offense to make it interesting. The problem is, at some point in that game, it's going to come down to who do we trust there? Kirby Smart on one side or Lane Kiffin, who has yet to do it in a big game. And this is a huge game for him. But I'll say this, and the number makes total sense. The under is 17-6 in Georgia home games over the last 23. So we are seeing a Georgia team at home not necessarily lighting up the scoreboard. We're also seeing an Ole Miss team that if it's not 63-50 or something along those lines, if we're not getting a ton of points from them, they struggle to be able to pull away from teams. I think the Georgia defense turned a corner last week. I think they will have a ton of success in limiting Ole Miss, but I do think this is going to be much closer than people anticipate. But I also think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. 17-6 to the under in Georgia home games. Yeah, a lot of people expecting points. I'm not. I think the under is the way to go in this one as well.
All right, back-to-back unders in these big games for Joe Raineri. Marco, can you make a case here for Ole Miss, maybe to spring the upset?
No, I can't. Sorry, I got to disagree with you, Joe. This is a spot where we've seen Georgia do this all year. They had a scare against Auburn. 27-20 is a 14-point favorite. What'd they do? They come back and smack the snot out of Kentucky the next week. Then they had a 33-point favorite against Vanderbilt after the Kentucky game. They only win by 17. Come back the next week. What'd they do? Smack the snot out of Florida in the cocktail party. Well, off of the cocktail party last week, they were playing Missouri. They had another lackluster game. 14-point favorite, was in a dogfight, ended up winning by 9, but not covering. Yeah, can you say sandwich game last week? They were looking ahead to this one off of the cocktail party. You're going to see the real Georgia. And when I look at Ole Miss, everything you said about Lane Kiffin, is absolutely true. I got to see him win a big game first. And then I look at what big game did they have? They played Alabama earlier in the year. They lost by 14. They played LSU the very next week. Yeah, they won, but they gave up 49 points in the 55-49 win. It's just the clock ran out. Somebody had to lose that one because nobody was stopping anybody. I'm going with Georgia. I'm laying the points here. I look for them to win this one. I got Georgia 38-20. I got them winning by 18.
All right. Well, these glasses, they can only mean one thing, and that means it's time for some TNA with Ralph Michaels. There's the man with the pen, and of course, all those nerd charts. But first, Ralph, let's go over Jeff's streakers.
Kelly, it really has been a streaker season. There are 4 streaks of 7 games or more. This is in the guide each week, But on top of the list, New Mexico State with 7 straight covers, Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Troy, each with 5 straight covers. USC with 7 straight ATS losses. And Kelly, if you look at the overs, USC with 7 straight overs. So I did the thing that everybody does, no one's ever bet in their life. But in the last 7 games, if you parlayed USC over the total and faded USC, that $100 parlay rolled over is now $90,000. Again, I know no one's ever done it. LSU, 9 straight overs. Going back to last year, the LSU Tigers have gone over the total 13 straight games. And folks, that Troy defense is legit. 7 straight unders for the Troy Trojans.
At some point in time, you'd think these are going to flip, yet they have not. Ralph, you got a little nerd chart for me this weekend in regards to totals.
Well, these are conference-only games, both sides and totals. So on the chart, you can look. The left-hand side are the ATS records for conference home favorites and home dogs. On the right-hand side with the blue headings are the over-under records when a conference team is a home favorite or a home dog. So take a look at the Big 12. Home favorites and home dogs both in the green. Take a look at the MAC. Home favorites and home dogs both in the red. And the SEC really sticks out to me on the bottom of the chart. Home favorites have been positive. Home dogs have been negative. If you blindly bet every SEC favorite this year in a conference game, you have cashed 64.1%. And take a look on the right-hand side of the chart. There's only one conference with both home favorites and home dogs in blue, which means they've gone over the total. If you blindly bet every SEC game over the total, you have cashed 65.8%. Kelly, this is like a couple years ago in the Big 12, when the Big 12 had all those quarterbacks and all those offenses and no defense. An amazing thing to see SEC games going over the total at a 65.8% clip.
Yeah, they like to talk about playing a lot of defense, but sure doesn't look like they have been, Ralph. All right, you've got not 1, not 2, but 5 systems for us this week in the NFL. Let's break down Week 11.
Well, there are 2, 4, 6, 8. There are 9 teams that reached their 7th loss. I'm just going to go through this quickly because remember, we talked about this a few games ago. When teams are off a loss, giving them 7 losses on the season, their bowl hopes are dashed. Those teams have covered 44.2%. And when those teams are a dog of 9 or more, excluding the final game of the regular season, they've gone 39.9%. Now, let me put a little asterisk on that. It's actually over 40% because Ball State did cover Tuesday against Northern Illinois, but I did this chart and I wanted to go into the week. But Virginia, ULM, Nevada, and Arizona State are all dogs of 9 or more, having their 7th loss last week, so those are teams to look to fade. Talk about teams to play on. This doesn't happen very frequently. You, in the last 3 games, have scored 159 points or more. And now you're a home favorite of 7 or more with a high total of 57 or more from week 5 on. So week 5 on to me is important because you're taking out the non-conference games. A lot of people run up to score against non-conference foes early in the season. But when you look at weeks 5 and later, that means you've been playing a good number of conference foes. So there's only one team that has scored 159 points or more in their last 3 games combined, and a home favorite of -7 or more. That is the red-hot SMU Mustangs. Those teams have gone 50 and 19, 72.5% to the over. A very strong system showing what a team does when the offense is in gear. System number 2 says play on SMU. This is a repeat as well. And we talk about because a system, it makes a play stronger or it might keep me off a game. This is actually keeping me off the Colorado State Rams. This is one of my strongest power rating plays, Colorado State. But let's remember, when teams are off a Wyoming game on the road and they do not have a bye, with the line as a dog or a favorite up to 20, those teams have only gone 31.5%. Why? Again, Wyoming, 7,000 plus feet altitude, the highest college football team. So when you go on the road at Wyoming and then play the next week without a bye, again, they only cover 31.5%. And if you went to Wyoming and lost, like Colorado State did, those teams are only 9-23 against the spread since 2009, 28.1%. So while I'm not going to play San Diego State, this is a system that clearly kept me off a game on Colorado State, which I would have used, but now I'm going to leave it off my card, and we'll see what happens. Two more to mention here. Teams that are off a conference win and are now a double-digit home dog. Since 2018, these teams are 41-81, 33.6%. The two teams to look to fade this week, Kentucky and Hawaii, both off conference wins and now a double-digit conference home dog going back to 2018. And if that team won as a conference away dog like Hawaii did, those teams are only 25.7% against the spread. So, situation one, look to fade teams off a loss, which was their 7th loss of the season. System two, play on SMU. A red-hot team, 159 points or more, 72.5%. System three, fade those teams off a road game at Wyoming with no bye. That says to fade Colorado State. And system four, double-digit conference home dogs off a conference win, fade Kentucky and Hawaii. And if they're off a win as a conference away dog like Hawaii, an even stronger fade for that situation. Again, check out the free Wager Talk TNA guide, a PDF of all of these systems and the charts and the streakers on a free download on my homepage, wt.buzz/RM.
Great stuff from Ralph, as always. Make sure you guys check out the TNA segment on the NFL show as well, at Cal Sports LV on Twitter. Ralph's always putting out great information. Let's get back to Marco and Joe for some of those barking dogs. Oh, Marco, I just saw who your barking dog was before we went live. I don't mean to mush you, but this one terrifies me.
Well, Kelly, you've known me long enough to know whenever I look at situations that this one was screaming off the page. And it's all about, we're going to start with fading Oklahoma State. And how can we not? That game last week for Oklahoma State was probably the biggest in years. You beat Oklahoma. We know how much of a rivalry that is. But this year had extra meaning to it. This was the last year of this rivalry for the foreseeable future. Oklahoma, they waved that middle finger at the rest of the Big 12. They're heading off to the SEC. They're gone. And Oklahoma State wanted to slam the door, hit them right in the butt as they're going out the door, and they did. And if you saw the end of that game, you saw the intensity of that game the whole time, saw the fans storm the field, tear the goalpost out, and there's no way that I possibly can see Mike Gundy getting this team up and focused for this week's game. If there was ever a team on fat and sassy alert, it's Oklahoma State this week. And to make matters worse, they're going to play the newcomer in the conference. They're going to Central Florida, okay? Most people in November love to go to Florida, but Oklahoma State off of that win, I don't think so. I'm taking Central Florida. This is a team that can score points. We know that Oklahoma State has had games where their defense has been missing this year. I'm looking for this one, both teams to go up and down the field. I'm taking Central Florida. It's going to be one of those ones, team with the ball last wins. I'm going to go ahead and call for the upset. Sorry, Joe. Central Florida, 38-34 in a barn burner on Saturday.
I don't want to go against you, Marco, because you've been red hot. But, I did watch that Oklahoma State game last week. I know, because they were my best bet. And I'm still kicking myself for not making West Virginia versus the same UCF team my best bet a few weeks ago. I don't trust them whatsoever, but good luck to you. Joe, Marco came up a little short with a 2.5-point underdog this week, so I'm going to need a bigger one from you.
Well, yeah, and if you thought that 2.5 was terrifying, wait until you see this 11.5 that we're looking at with Charlotte right now, as they are going to be home taking on Memphis. And actually, it was 11. It seems to be 9 now. So apparently there's some shrinkage in this line movement here, Marco. I don't know why, but apparently, oh yeah, that's right. Because everyone else understands, who in the hell is Memphis with this defense that has now given up in their last 2 games 591 yards and 583 yards? And, oh yeah, they got backdoored last week by South Florida. Yes, they won, but 59-42. And Charlotte, listen, at home, it's been a rough, but these 2 teams are now American Athletic Conference rivals. And this is the first year in the American Athletic for Charlotte. And quite honestly, they've done a much better job against conference opponents than Memphis has. Now, Memphis next week has a huge rivalry game. Speaking of that, Marco, SMU is on tap next week. They are going again on the road here with a defense that can't stop a nosebleed. And you're expecting me to believe that Memphis is going to win by double digits? This has got let down written all over it. And listen, good old Biff Poggi over there is maybe one of the best dressed head coaches you will ever see trolling the sidelines there. This guy is fantastic with his ripped sleeves and his half shirts. The guy is phenomenal. I would definitely tune into it, but I would also get ready for possibly the upset of the weekend, as Charlotte not only is going to cover this number, but in all likelihood, Memphis is going to get caught napping once again, looking ahead to SMU, and they're going to get beaten this game. Give me Charlotte plus the points and the money line.
Joe, I would ask if you were high, but that is for the NFL segment. So instead, I'm just going to ask who you're fading this week.
Oh, my goodness. So, you probably saw. So, yes, I probably should be high making this, but I'm going to do it anyway because the number is out of control and the rivalry is real, and we know that down here in South Florida. You and I both know here, Cal, no matter what happens at this point in the season, when the U and Florida State get together, guess what? Doesn't matter what you did prior. You can win 2 games. You can win 3 games. You can win no games. It doesn't matter. The season for Miami rides on this game. And yes, there is absolutely nobody who has watched Miami against North Carolina State, or anybody else for that matter, that goes, Miami has a prayer in this game. The public loves them some Florida State, which is exactly why with this number at 2 touchdowns, you should be looking at the underdog in this spot. Why? Because the dog has dominated this series, Cal. 18-7 with 12 outright upsets in this rivalry. Again, 18-7 with 12 outright upsets. And these weren't great FSU teams, nor were they great Miami teams over the last decade. The bottom line is this game means everything to Miami. It's a huge game for FSU. Guess who's got all the pressure on them? It ain't Miami. It's FSU, who, by the way, is still dealing with some injuries. Both their big-time wide receivers who missed the game against Pitt last week, and you saw the offense struggling a little bit against the Pitt Panthers. Listen, the Miami D is for real. Forget about Van Dyke. Yes, they got issues offensively, but that's a real Miami defense, and I am not 100% sold on Florida State, who once again came out as the top 4 team in the country. They're in the playoffs if they started tomorrow. Huge spot here for Florida State. Even bigger spot for Miami to redeem their season. I don't know that they'll win it, but they're going to keep this thing real close, and it's going to have one of those all-time great finishes again that Miami and Florida State have always had.
I want to take Miami so bad, Joe, in my underdog parlay. But, God, all I can think about is if I get Cristobal to one more time. It's just been a really rough past couple of years with this Miami team. Even before Mario, in fact, they've been a thorn in my side. And also FSU getting to play, I don't know, some like Northern Alabama team next week. What do they think they are? The SEC? So it makes me a little frustrated, a little uneasy, but I do think I have to take the points, at least take the 2 touchdowns with the Canes. Marco D'Angelo, I know I complained last week that I was getting full of sandwiches, even though they were winning. And this week you closed down the deli. You brought me a trap game.
I did. I mean, when the princess of the show speaks, we listen. I mean, that's what we got to do. And, I have a trap game here, but now I'm wondering if I should change this trap game to poor Joe. Did he fall into the Cristobal trap once again? I don't know. I'll pray for you, Joe. And
thank you.
I always say when it comes to rivalry games, you throw out the stats. I just wish you could throw out the coaches too, because that's a problem. But
True.
I'm there with you, buddy, in spirit. This week, and this is why this is a trap game, Kelly. I'm looking at NC State here, and man, are they hanging on the cliff, ready to fall into the big old trap that they set themselves up in. Look at their last 2 games. 2 games back, they beat Clemson. Now, we know Clemson has had a bad year. I've been going against them several times. In fact, we went against them that week with NC State. NC State had 2 weeks to prepare for them. Down season for Clemson. We got the win, the outright win. Then, last week, hey, Joe's team, they beat Miami and Cristobal, okay? And, yeah, they put it to them. They held them to 6 points last week. And I don't care how bad of a season Clemson is having or how many times Cristobal could screw the season up for Miami. They're still the blue bloods of the conference. And when you beat those teams, you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. Fat and sassy. So that puts them on upset alert. Then let's throw in the last thing. After those 2 very satisfying and fulfilling wins, it made them bowl eligible now. How does this team show up this week to play Wake Forest? To me, NC State, now that they're bowl eligible, they got 1 game left that's going to mean a lot to them, and that's the final game of the season when they play North Carolina. I am making a play against NC State. They're in a trap this week, and look at the line. It's only 2.5. Who wants Wake Forest that's lost 5 of their last 6 games? But Wake Forest still has a shot to become bowl eligible. All they got to do at 4-5 is win 2 of their last 3 games. That means they better win this one this week because they ain't winning next week. And normally I would be concerned about a look-ahead spot at Notre Dame, but they're not winning in Notre Dame, and they need to win 2 games to become bowl eligible. They need this one. Wake Forest plus the points is the trap game of the week.
Oh, boy, that one's tough to stomach. Good thing it wasn't a sandwich game because I don't know if I could have eaten it. I'm going to kick you guys out of here. When we come back, it'll be time for Best Bets. But right now, it is time for some of that college gold with VR. I got a little promo for him before we bring him in. Ace is number 2 out of 30 handicappers here at Wager Talk, plus 158.2 units in 2023. His 1-week all-access pass is priced at $119. But this coupon drops it to $69. That is ACE, $69, and as an added bonus. Even though weekly passes do not come with access to his Steam Room on Sundays, anybody who uses this special code ACE69 to get the week, that's right, you're going to get put on a special invite list for Sunday's Steam Room. All right, and it's time to bring in the Greek Gambler himself, at Greek_Gambler on Twitter. Let's hear what you got for this week's gold, Ace.
All right, thanks, guys. I got some good stuff for you this week. We're going to have to dive right in because you know what's going on. It's Wednesday. There's a ton of college basketball, ton of NBA. Those that have jumped on, You know how we're already doing damage? I believe 6-1 out of the gate in college basketball, and it was the perfect time. I know a lot of people have jumped on over the last 10 days, 2 weeks. Practice proper money management. The damage will continue, but remember, nothing goes up in a straight line. There'll be some chop along the way. So welcome to the team. And don't forget, Sunday, don't be late for the steam room. We will be firing live. With that said, let's dive into college football. I'm going to knock out some of the totals first, and then we'll get to the sides because it's all over the place. Start off with Michigan and Penn State over 45.5. Eastern Michigan, Toledo under 46. First half, Virginia, Louisville under 26. Utah, Washington, big game under 52. Va-Tech, BC under 50. Rutgers, Iowa under 28.5, under 28. So not a lot of points expected there. East Carolina, Florida Atlantic under 45.5. And finally, 229 under 47.5. Air Force and Hawaii. Those are the totals. Make sure you look at where the line opened, how it's moved, how the market reacted to these steam moves. Make sure it isn't just weather related and you missed out on the adjustment, or that it's not the other side of a big middle. Because again, I'm not the only one moving for these groups. So sometimes they'll fire team A or over with one side, team B, or under with another mover or runner. So you got to do your homework as well. And the sides go like this. Start off with Texas A&M, double-digit favorite, minus 18. Still not high enough. They're going to lay this one all the way up to 19. And then Iowa State, minus 6.5. Iowa State, minus 7. Drop down to Utah, 177. Utah, plus the 10, minus 119 or better. That's what it's worth. If the total is a little lower, you'll pay that extra penny, lay the 120. But if your book's charging you more than 120 to get that half point, don't do it. Take the 9.5 at minus 110. Because that half point from 9.5 to 10 is only worth 9 cents. Shouldn't be paying more than 119. But again, based on the total and the matchup, I'll give it a penny here or there. Then San Jose State, 228 plus the 1. And Pick'em, Central Michigan plus the 3.5. Auburn, key number, plus the 3. And finally, Central Florida, UCF, game 142. Another key numbers, UCF plus the 3. That's going to do it. Oh, Akron, game 111 earlier in the week, plus 11. Going to do it for this week, college football. Don't forget, coming right back with NFL Gold.
Thank you to VR for always sharing that college football gold. You know what else has been gold? The best bets on this show. Last week, I had to defend myself with Oklahoma fans, and this week, I fully expect to have Texas fans fired up in the mentions. I get it. Kelly hates Texas. No, I don't. Texas seems to be overrated every single week. You know who else is not really that great of a quarterback? Oh, Malik Murphy. 19 for 37 last week. That would be barely 50% if you're keeping track there at home. Last week, in an overtime win to my Kansas State Wildcats, he threw 2 interceptions. And now he gets to face his first road start in Fort Worth. Yeah, I know. TCU, they lost to Colorado to start the season. But this team wants one last chance to beat the Texas Longhorns. Are they going to do it? We're going to have to wait and see on Saturday. But boy, 10.5 points. This one's already come down, opened at 12, maybe even seeing 10s right now on the Wager Talk odds screen. Regardless, I like the Home Frogs. Anything over a touchdown, I think that is going to be how this one ends in a nail biter. Birthday boy belated, Marco D'Angelo. Share with us what you have over at Wager Talk and give me your best bet for college football, week 11.
Well, Kelly, if you've been watching the show all season long, you know we lost our college best bet the first week of the season, that dreaded week 0 in college football, and we've rolled off 9 in a row since then. We're going for 10 in a row on the show, and because it is birthday week, we're having a birthday bash. 7 days, all access. You can get all of my plays this week. Normally $99 for just $62. And if you're wondering where the $62 price came from, yes, that is how old I am. And we're going to include everything, all sports, for 7 days. And I will have at least 15% play major wager this weekend. Head over to Wager Talk right now to sign up. Guys, let's keep this streak going as we go for 10 in a row. Last week, we came with an obscure game, Texas State, and they went pillar to post. Looking for the same type of game this week, as we are going to go with Middle Tennessee State. Now, when you look at this game, first of all, you're going to have to look up and try to figure out what conference they're in. You probably don't know. Figure out where they're at. Then you're going to look at this team. And then the first thing you're going to see is they're 2-7 on the season. And they're an 11-point favorite. What are you doing, Marco? You got a 2-7 team laying 11 points to a team that, believe it or not, is 4-5. What's wrong? Well, if you dig a little bit deeper, I'll tell you why. Look at who Middle Tennessee State has played. Middle Tennessee State opened the season on the road at Alabama. Then their second game on the road again at Missouri. Then they had one patsy, so to speak. They played Murray State, and then they played Colorado State for their final out-of-conference game. And if you remember, when Colorado was all the rage, Colorado State almost beat them. Then look at their 5 conference games. They went 1-4 to start the conference. The 5 teams that they've played so far in conference play, the top 5 teams in the conference. In horse racing, we use the phrase dropping down in class, and this team is dropping way down in class. Look at the statistics on this team. They are a better defensive team than Florida International. They're a better offensive team than Florida International. And when you factor in the strength of the schedule they've played, those numbers become even greater. I'm taking Middle Tennessee State at home. I'm going to lay the wood with them. I've got them winning this game 38-17. Another one of those obscure games flying under the radar that hit my radar. I'm going with Middle Tennessee State as our best bet as we look to make it 10 in a row here on the show with the College Best Bets.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with Joe Raineri here. Give me your best bet.
Well, it's Saturday is going to be traumatic anyway when Oklahoma State rolls over UCF and Miami wins outright over Florida State. So I want to go for a Friday best bet. So this way we can space it out a little bit there, Marco. And I'm going to go to your neck of the woods, Marco, for our best bet. And a big shout out to one of our producers here at Wager Talk, Eric, who is a huge UNLV running Rebels fan, and he'll be at this game, in fact, when they get ready to smash the most overrated Wyoming team I have ever seen in a long time. Now, I'm not bitter because I had Colorado State in the 9 points and they turned it over 3 times in 8 minutes. No, I'm just simply saying this matchup sucks for them, and here's why. Wyoming, outside of Laramie, is a different team. Also, one of the biggest problems with this Wyoming defense, which is why I don't trust them, is they can't stop the run. It also happens to be the one thing that UNLV does better than just about anybody in the country. We are talking about right now, guys, about 206 rushing yards a game in conference here in the Mountain West, nearly 5 yards a carry, and that spells disaster for a Wyoming defense that struggles to get off the field against quality running teams. They also came off of that rivalry game against Colorado State last week there. Now they got to travel to go to UNLV in Vegas, where, by the way, they have been an ATM machine this year, guys. 8-1 against the number. They're playing great on defense. They're playing great on offense. They're getting turnovers, and they're not turning the ball over here. This line opened up at 4, which I loved. It's now up to 5.5 here. I still like it under a touchdown because I believe that is ultimately what UNLV at the end of this game, they're going to score one of those late touchdowns and pull away from this overhyped just overrated Wyoming squad. Give me UNLV to win by a touchdown or more Friday night, getting ready for what should be an absolutely monster Saturday in college football.
Oh, Joe, going with the Red Hot Rebels. Let's get that recap graphic up. And don't forget to drop a happy birthday to Marco D'Angelo in the comments section. You guys are mean to him all year long. You can at least be nice to him on his birthday. Either way, we hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show. We always enjoy doing it. We're going to keep cashing those tickets for you guys from Joe, Marco, Ralph, VR, and myself. Good luck. And until next week, let's bet on it.